Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. My name's Tracy Martirana from Holistic Wellness with Tracy. And while normally I do a lot of videos on healthy recipes, a little bit of yoga, a little bit of Ayurveda, a little bit of meditation, every once in a while I like to jump in here with a self-development book. This started at the beginning of the year when I set myself a reading goal to read or reread some sort of self-development book every month during the year. And then I thought, hey, while I'm reading it, I might as well pop in, make a video, and share it with you. And I have read some great books this year. If you haven't been following along, I will be sure to link a playlist to some of those videos below. Also down in the description box, you'll see that link, and you should see the link to some of the other videos as well. Book number 10 is Atomic Habits by James Clear. The subtitle, which is actually 2 for this book, the first one is Tiny Changes, Remarkable Results, and the second one is An Easy and Proven Way to Build Good Habits and Break Bad Ones. I'm a bit of a habit change nerd because I have spent time sort of coaching and inspiring people to sort of create better habits. And the best way to do that is sort of understand habit change. I have 2 favorite habit change books. The first one I shared a couple months ago, that was Tiny Habits, and this is my second favorite. I feel like everybody has heard of this book. It was published back in 2018. Yes, I had to verify that. It was on the New York bestseller list and has sold over 15 million copies. So it's no wonder that people tend to pick this up when they're ready to make some changes. As I've done with several of the other books, I'm going to give you just a few takeaways from the book, maybe a couple or a few from every chapter. And then I invite you to take that little bit of information and decide, does it sound interesting? Does it sound maybe helpful? And if it does, pick up a copy and read it yourself. The first section of this book is called The Fundamentals, and it sort of just gets into the reason why tiny changes work. And I don't know, I don't think it's rocket science to know that if you want to make a change, you're probably going to be more successful taking little incremental changes than big, huge changes. And while this isn't mentioned in this book particular, I always tend to think of New Year's Eve resolutions where we make these big, grandiose claims of things we want to do or change. And then a week or two into the new year, we've kind of forgotten all about it and went back to our previous ways. But when you make a little tiny change that is so simple that you almost can't not do it, you're much more likely to succeed. In this section, Clear tells a story of, I believe it's a cycling team that had been losing and just underperforming, and how they brought somebody in who said, you know what, we're going to look at all of the details that go into cycling. We're going to look at your clothes. We're going to look at your shoes. We're going to look at how you exercise before you go out cycling. We're going to look at your diet. We're going to look at the oil that you use on your bike chain, like every single little tiny thing. And then we are going to make little tiny changes to all of those things, trying to increase them just a little bit. And this concept is called the aggregation of marginal change. I also encourage you to pick up this book just to read the update to that story that he added later. Luckily, he was able to add it before the book went out to be published. It adds a little ha-ha-ness to the story that's what he chose to use as his example, but it's still a good example. He points out that often, like our breakthrough moment on anything, when all of a sudden we do something great, it is because we have done 100 tiny little things before that. You know what they say? It's something like you get famous overnight after 100, or what is it? Something along like getting famous or getting your big break. Never mind. He also talks about what I think is the key to all of this, And that is that you focus on not your goal of what you want to get to, but what your system is that gets you in that direction. And his point is valid that even winners and losers both have the same goal. It's not about having the good goal. It's about setting yourself up to win by the tiny little habits that you do every day. He also links habit change, successful habit change, I should say, with identity, because you have to, again, focus on the system instead of focusing on the goal you want to reach. Think of why. So maybe you want to read a lot of books in the future. Maybe you set, like I had this goal of reading 2 books a month for the year. The goal then is not to just think about reading the books, but to begin thinking of yourself as a reader. And then when you have a choice of, I can sit down and either read a book or scroll on my phone, you think to yourself, what would a reader do in this situation? The reader would read the book. And that can be extrapolated into just about anything. And the last big concept from this section that you must understand to understand the rest of the book is that every behavior that we make is broken down into 4 steps. It is the cue, it is the craving, then there is our response, and then the reward. And the rest of the book focuses on those 4. It takes those 4 steps and sort of creates or talks about a law, if you will, that makes that step successful. So the next section of the book focuses on that first step, which is the cue. The cue is like the reminder to do something that you want to do, or that you're going to do, I guess, whether you want to or not. And the first law then is to make a good habit or create a good habit, you make the cue obvious. It might be an alarm clock. It might be timing it with something you already do, which is like habit stacking, which if you watch that video on tiny habits, he talked a lot on habit stacking. Like if you want to start flossing your teeth, you could habit stack that with brushing your teeth, or you can get wild and crazy and habit stack it with something like taking a shower, which is much more enjoyable, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But in order to be successful, the cue that reminds you to do the behavior must be obvious. And on that same note, if you're trying to curb a bad behavior, you know what cue makes you want to do it, so you try to avoid that behavior or change up that behavior to make it less obvious, to make it more difficult, maybe even to make that cue invisible so you don't even see it. In this section, he does talk about habit stacking. He talks about making your cues obvious. And he also talks about this thing called an intention formula, where you think in your mind, or maybe even write it down, or even hang up a sign, or do whatever, put a reminder in your phone. And the sentence looks something like this. It is, I will, and then whatever that behavior is that you want to do, at a certain time, at a certain location. Bam. So if you can identify, I want to do this one tiny thing, pick a time and a location, write it down, commit to it, you're much more likely to do it than if you just said like, oh, sometime randomly this week, I'm going to walk for a mile. You'll be much more successful if you write it out. I want to walk 1 mile on Wednesday at 7:30 in the morning, or whatever time works for you. Or if maybe specific time doesn't work, you do sort of the habit stacking of, I will walk for 1 mile every day after lunch. Something like that, right? The second step is craving. So once you see the cue, there's something about doing the behavior that you want. You want the reward. You're craving the reward, whatever that might be. We haven't gotten to that yet. So the law, the second law, the one attached to craving, is make it attractive. Make yourself want to do the habit because you want maybe what comes next. In this section, he does talk about the dopamine response, which is anticipation leads to a dopamine release, which leads to increased anticipation, which then eventually leads to your action. So you can simply do this by making each cue, whatever your reminder is, remind you to do the habit you want to start doing along with a habit that you enjoy doing. Maybe it might not even be the best habit, but as long as it gets you to do it, it's a good thing. So if your goal is you need to clear out your inbox, which currently has 500 emails sitting in there, maybe every day at such and such time, or when your alarm goes off on your phone, or after you eat lunch, or first thing in the morning, whatever your cue is, maybe the behavior is just go through and delete 10 emails. And then after that, you get to scroll Facebook for 10 minutes. So you get a reward. And then you only allow yourself to do the Facebook when you do the new behavior. That could be anything from like saving a book, an audiobook to listen to only when you're out walking or exercising, or could be finding really great music to listen to while you're cleaning the house. That great music is your reward for cleaning the house. You get to listen to it and dance around and have fun. You make it fun, you make it attractive, you make it something that you actually want to do for some reason other than just the end game, like some other little, like, this is enjoyable to do right now. Because the problem with any sort of habit change, and you know this, if you've ever tried to lose weight, this is a perfect example. You start eating healthy, you start exercising, and you think immediately you're going to see results. But you don't. There is like this long delay between starting the new habits and seeing actual results. And so you need, for one, to be really patient in that section, waiting for the results to happen, to show up. But you also need to somehow make it enjoyable during that time. There's got to be something to help you want to keep doing it when you know you're not really going to see the long-term results quite yet. And that's where the craving comes in. If you want to learn a little bit more, but you're not quite ready to jump in and read the book, be sure to check out my blog post on this. I will leave a link to that down in the description box. I go a little bit more in detail than I'm going through now, but not quite to the level of reading the book. And last thing I should mention real quickly about craving and making it attractive. Obviously, if you're trying to break a habit, you try to make it as unattractive as possible. That is why, I don't know if you've ever heard, and I don't even know what it's called, but I know there is a medication that alcoholics can take that then make them sick if they drink alcohol. That is like a great example of making something unattractive so that you stop doing it. But you can find other ways to make doing a bad habit unattractive. Sometimes it's just thinking about it. Sometimes it's about surrounding yourself with people that don't do it. So then fitting in with the people that, like, I don't know. So if you're trying to quit smoking, hang out with non-smokers and you'll be much less likely to smoke, because the attractiveness thing there is fitting in with this new group of people. And not fitting in is very unattractive. It's human nature. The third step is response, and that is the actual behavior. That is doing the thing that you want to do, right? That you're working towards doing more of. So the law for number 3 is to make it easy. And this is where the term atomic habits really comes from. We try to make those changes so small, so easy that it would be silly to fail at this, right? To not do it, because we're only doing a little something. So if your idea is you want to, we'll go back to reading a book. You want to read a book. So maybe your goal, maybe your end goal, which we're not really focused on, but that's what's going to first pop into your head, right? Is I want to read 12 books this year. If currently you read no books, then all of a sudden saying I'm going to read 1 book a month. If you don't read at all, that could be too big of a thing. You might read 1 book in January and then in February be like, yeah, what? What am I doing? Oh, I forgot. So we want to make it easy. So the first thing would be like, get a book, have it handy, have it wherever you are. Maybe have it an audiobook so you can listen to it. Maybe have it on your Kindle so you can easily carry it around in your purse or your backpack, whatever, so it's always handy. The activity that you're going to start out with has to be tiny. So maybe it's read 1 page every day. And then when you go back to the previous step of using that that intention formula, you can think to yourself, okay, I'm going to read one page every day. Well, no, maybe, I don't know, before bed, which is not really the best time because you're probably tired. So maybe one page every day after dinner, or when I get home from work, or first thing in the morning before I take a shower, whatever works for you in your schedule in your life. And yeah, okay, if you start with one page every day, you're probably not going to read 12 books in a year, but it's building that habit of reading. It is supporting the idea that you are a reader. You read every day, so therefore you are a reader. And then the more you do that, the more likely you are to read a little bit more, maybe 2 pages a day, or maybe read one page a couple times a day. Like, it will just become more natural to you when you become a reader. So make it easy. If you are trying to do a new habit and you are struggling, you probably haven't made it easy enough. In this section, Clear actually says something along the lines of, the point here is not really to master the habit, it's to master the art of like showing up. So once you are in the habit of showing up and doing it, then you can improve upon the habit. You can't improve upon the habit until it's a habit. So therefore, show up, make a small habit, and then build it from there. Again, if you're looking at the opposite, if you're trying to break a bad habit, make it difficult. This is one, I don't know, if you are trying to watch what you eat, you're trying to eat less junk food, you're trying to be a healthy person, get rid of the junk food. Empty out your pantry. Just throw it away, give it away, whatever it takes, get it out of your house. And now in the evening, when you get that craving for potato chips, it's not there. It's not easy. It's difficult. You have to get, well, I'm going to say you have to get in your car and drive, but at the very least, you have to go online and order some potato chips to be delivered to your house. So at least it's a little more difficult, right? If you are trying to avoid spending hours on social media, removing the apps from your phone, again, you can still do it, but you've made it more difficult. You've increased the chances that you'll be successful. The fourth step is all about reward. So we want to make it satisfying. Remember a couple minutes ago, I mentioned that oftentimes we start a behavior, but we don't see real results for a little bit of time, depending on what it is we're doing. If we're trying to lose weight, it takes a little while. In fact, we might even see the scale go up a little bit before it comes down. So we need something to be like, hey, this is good. We're enjoying this. We want to do it more. We're getting some sort of reward for it. Because as James Clear says, and I'm going to read it to you and make sure I quote it right, the human brain evolved to prioritize immediate reward over delayed rewards. What is immediately rewarded will be repeated. The rewards don't have to be crazy, but it could be, if you do whatever it is for 5 days, you reward yourself with a nice Starbucks drink, or you go out for dinner, or you get a pedicure. So it could be something like that. But it could also be something much simpler. And he actually suggests just using a habit tracker, because there is just something so satisfying about checking it off every day that you did it. And then once you get a few of those lined up, it becomes even harder to skip, because you don't want to not be able to check it off or exit off or however you do. So I think of, as kids, did you ever have a sticker chart of, you do these things and when you do them you get a sticker, and therefore you were much likely to do them every day because you wanted your sticker every day? It's the same idea. It works for adults too. It can also be finding an accountability partner. Maybe you have a friend who also wants to do the same habit as you, whether it's they want to start walking every day or they want to start reading more. Pair up with them, talk to them, and make a pact that you will do it every day, that you have to tell each other every day whether or not you did it, that you can turn to them for encouragement if you're thinking about not doing it, or if you're getting just, depressed because you're not making the changes you want. Or maybe it's something you can actually do together. Like, If you want to eat healthy, maybe you can go grocery shopping together or do meal planning together. Obviously, if you want to exercise, you could walk together or go to the gym together. If I'm trying to think of what other things you might want to do that you could pair up and do it together, be creative. And again, if you're looking to break a habit, make it unsatisfying. Now, again, we like to fit in to crowds. We like to look good in front of people we love and respect. So one way to do this is announce it publicly to a group, to your friends, to your family, what you intend to do, because then it becomes a little less attractive to fail at it, because then everybody's going to know that you didn't do what you wanted to do, and you're more likely to follow through. Doesn't work with everything, but it's an idea. Make it as unsatisfying as possible. The first 3 laws, make it obvious, make it attractive, and make it easy, increase the chances of you doing that habit this time. And then the 4th law of make it satisfying increases the chances that you will do it again. So all 4 of these things are important and should not be overlooked, especially the trying to make it satisfying part, because again, you want to keep doing it over and over. And my final thoughts on this, I love the setup of this book because every chapter ends with a little, I don't know, it's probably like maybe 5 or 6 bullet points, highlights of sort of like the key takeaways of that chapter, which to me are really handy because when I read a book like this, sometimes some of those things like pop right out in my mind. I might even write them down or highlight them. Sometimes I accidentally gloss over them and then I get to the end and I was like, oh, that's right. He did talk about that. Like I wasn't really paying attention when I read those 3 chapters. It didn't really sink into my mind. And sometimes I even went back and reread a little portion just to be like, wait, what? So I really love those little reminders at the end of each chapter of the key takeaways. In addition to that, there are also, like I think 24 pages of notes at the end. So like footnotes type things from throughout the book. So 24 pages. So if you are reading the book and you find even any little tidbit kind of interesting, go back and find some of the footnotes around that, and then go ahead and get nerdy and deep dive into whatever it might be. There's also a nice appendix in there with some key tips on using this stuff at work, using these ideas with kids. And I believe he mentions in a couple different places links that you can go to on his website to find a couple various tools. I only scratched the surface of this book. I highly recommend you pick up a copy. I think you'll enjoy it. I love this book almost as much as I love Tiny Habits. I think Tiny Habits is actually my favorite, but this one is a very good runner-up, very good information. Highly recommend it. I mean, 15 million copies sold for a reason. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you will pick up a copy of Atomic Habits, give it a read, maybe check out some of the other books that I've read and discussed. Again, I will link them all below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and have a great day.